Well, welcome to our next episode of the Spend Life Well show. Today, we're going to be talking with listeners about, how do you evaluate whether your financial advisor is doing a good job? Now, if you don't have a financial advisor, you need one because we feel that having a good financial advisor is part of the key to your financial success.
Right.
I'm Certified Kingdom Advisor Mark Trice. This is my co-host, Jesse Hamilton.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show.
Jesse is another financial advisor, which we can say today. It was kind of crazy that we couldn't say that the right way. But glad you've chosen to join us. We're going to be talking about how do you tell if your financial advisor is doing a good job. You can go to kingdomadvisors.com if you want to find someone that's been trained in biblical wisdom and finance. So, Jesse, one of the first questions and we got a lot of these questions from the Wall Street Journal article published a few years ago, or a few weeks ago. And the author, in fairness, is Cheryl Monk, and you can find on WSJ. We're just using her questions to have a conversation today because we think they're pretty good. So, first question is, what am I paying for?
Right, and that can vary greatly because in its purest sense, a financial advisor is just somebody who invests your money for you, right?
Well, that's the typical. We go back to the early days of the financial industry where there were stockbrokers.
Right.
And you were talking about a relative of yours has a stockbroker.
Yeah, my broker does this, my broker does that, yeah.
And there were even commercials in the 80s about, E.F. Hutton, which it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
But E.F. Hutton, and you'd be sitting in a cafe and say, well, my broker is E.F. Hutton, and then everybody's supposed to listen to what you're doing because E.F. Hutton
has great advice.
Pick the winning stock, I guess. So that what you're paying for may vary widely, but most people are paying either a commission for an investment that was purchased, or they're paying an advisory fee.
Right.
Now, those advisory fees are going to range based on what the advisor is doing for you. What we found is there's not that many advisors out there that are doing true financial planning and investment management at the same time. Mm-hmm. We do. Most advisors are just going to give you a modern portfolio theory basket of mutual funds or stocks and bonds, and they're going to charge a fee for that, and they usually leave it alone. But those fees can range anywhere from 0.5 percentage point up to 1.2% if they're just doing investment management.
Correct.
Now, other fees can be higher if they're doing a more advanced financial planning and what they're doing with that. So it's going to be kind of confusing for some folks because it's all over the place.
It can be all over the place, and also some advisors charge flat fees in addition to the asset management fee.
Correct.
Just depends on what they're doing for you.
So the question to ask your financial advisor is what are you paying? What am I paying for? In translation is, what are you doing for me?
Right. And I would hope that this would be an easy answer, and you would already know the answer, because if you're paying something, you should get value from it. And but I really hope that your advisor has a good answer for you.
Now, we have different service levels in our firm. And
right.
So platinum clients that want to attain more advanced services are getting all these different types of services.
Right.
This is available for those that want to see it. We happily provide it. But, you want to make sure that you understand what your advisor is actually doing for you. If it's just investment management, those fees should be pretty darn low.
Right.
Okay? So the other question is, you're talking and evaluating your financial advisors. How's your investment performance stack up?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's lots of different ways to, quote, manage money. Most of the industry is using modern portfolio theory, or as we affectionately call it, the buy and hold approach, okay?
Yeah.
Or sometimes we call it buy, hold, and pray.
Buy, hold, and pray.
But, how does their investment performance stack up? We've talked to a number of people the last 12 months because the market was down quite a bit, almost 20%. The S&P was in 2022. A lot of people are surprised to see their portfolio down 25. Sometimes we've seen a few that were 30%.
Mm-hmm.
And they really didn't understand how they performed.
So most people do compare their performance to either the S&P 500. A lot of people talk about the Dow Jones, but it's not always the best benchmark for your portfolio.
Right, because you got to make sure that you're comparing that performance to a benchmark that is more in line with your risk goals, risk, and objectives that you have. Right. So, it may not add up. Now, one of the challenges is a lot of broker-dealers or financial firms don't really give you the performance. Isn't that astonishing?
It is astonishing. It's hard to get an actual percentage out of them, especially when it's negative.
That's right. Now, you can see that your account's down, right?
Yeah, they'll give you the dollar
But you don't
amount.
know what that is relative to in a percentage terms because you need to know.
Yeah, so
You need to know how it's doing. So, folks, our advice, Jesse, I think, is just look at your statement, see how you're doing.
Yeah, and
if you don't understand it, give us a call. We'll help you understand it.
And if it doesn't provide performance in terms of percentages, calculate it and compare it to several different benchmarks.
Right. So, third point, question you need to be asking yourself about your advisor is, does my advisor communicate to my liking?
Yeah.
Now, this may be seen kind of an odd question, but every client that we work with have different preferences.
Sure. Some want to hear from us once or twice a year, and they say, do your thing, and we'll meet, and that's great. Some people want to talk all the time. It's really just the preference of the client.
But the bottom line is if you haven't heard from your advisor in 12 months because they've been hiding under a desk, avoiding your calls, that's not good communication. One of the things that we do is we communicate via email at least twice a month. We're going to make sure we have quarterly calls with you. We're going to make sure we have it at a minimum once a year sit down where we go intensive to review all the goals and objectives, talk about the performance and so forth.
Yeah.
Make sure that your advisor is communicating with you on a regular basis.
We generally don't want to crowd people or bother them, but we also believe that being transparent and having more communication is usually better.
Well, one of the times that I think communication is so critical is when the market's really volatile.
Right, and you could be very worried because this is your livelihood. This is your net worth, your nest egg, and people can get very stressed about it.
Our job as financial advisors is to give you some type of peace about your investment and your financial future. And so if your advisor is not talking to you during these volatile times, then you need to ask them to, or talk to someone else. Communicating with clients during a very volatile type of environment is so critical because a lot of times we just try to ignore it, we block it out, or we worry about it.
Easy to avoid it.
And if we avoid it, then we don't have to deal with the reality. But it's very important that we face facts and deal with the problems and address them if we can. Okay? So a fourth point about communicating really with your client, the advisor, and so forth, that you can ask them, does your advisor keep up with industry trends? All right? Now, we've always said, and it says in Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun, right?
Right.
And so there's not a lot of, quote, new stuff out there. But are there trends out there that your financial advisor is not keeping up with? Are they keeping up with, changes in the law? We had this right before Christmas, the new version of the Secure Act, the Secure Act 2.0. And hopefully you've received communication from your advisor about those changes because it almost impacts everyone.
Right. If you are saving in some way for retirement, if you're approaching retirement, or if you're in retirement, it probably affects you. And this is an example of your advisor needs to communicate with you about up-to-date information.
So, we don't want your advisor to communicate every little scheme out there, as we talked about.
Right.
But we do want to make sure that your advisor is keeping you abreast of all the changes in the laws. I know we get lots of questions in the last few years about cryptocurrency.
Especially, news articles over the last few months. Huge news.
Yeah, a lot of fraud going on in cryptocurrency right now with a few companies. I think that will continue to unwind. But, you want to be up to date. Your advisor should be updating you on what's going on with those things.
That doesn't mean they have to be a crypto expert, but they should be able to respond to you about what the current state is.
And I think a lot of that stuff, traditional broker-dealers may be holding off on cryptocurrency in its pure forms until there's more regulation around it. Because as a result of the fiasco that happened this last year, one of those crypto exchange companies, I think there's going to be more regulation and stuff around that later on.
And the whole meme stock thing has kind of died off, but that was very relevant a couple years ago.
Yeah. And we get calls about that. Should I buy? And it's like, I don't think so. This is one of those pump and dump type schemes that's out there.
Right.
And investors, buyer beware, caveat emptor, buyer beware. We have to make sure that you're not taking advantage of those. So, and then finally, Jesse, the fifth thing that really your advisor should be telling you is, or asking your advisor about is, do they tell it to you straight? Okay.
Yeah. Are they trying to avoid the truth in any way, or maybe sugarcoat some different words that they use?
And that always annoyed me before I got my licenses to become a financial advisor and a certified Kingdom advisor. Always annoyed me because I can tell when someone's trying to blow smoke where the sun don't shine. Okay, so does your advisor tell it to you straight? Okay, are they being upfront and telling you this is what's going on, this is what they can control and help you with, and this is what they can't? I know when we were doing client reviews this year for 2022, it was a hard conversation because our accounts were down, but we compared it to relative to the indexes, and clients, would see that in context, right? And is your advisor shooting you straight? Because I've seen situations before where it's, you remember the street game in New York City where you can play Find the Queen and you're trying to shuffle the queen around and see if it's always a scam, right? But sometimes if some financial advisors don't want to face the facts and deal with the problem head on, so they try to distract you, right?
And there could be a big difference between trying to calm your nerves and avoiding reality.
Yeah, because there's really, I think there's two types of advisors, one that raises your blood pressure and one that lowers your blood pressure.
Right.
Folks, you want to work with an advisor that lowers your blood pressure. This is not something that you want to stress about, because this is likely, your financial future we're talking about, and it should not be a stressful situation. You want to make sure that your advisor is being direct, honest, candid, and that's why we always like to talk about certified Kingdom advisors, because they are trained in biblical wisdom and they adhere to a code of ethics that has the highest standards of care.
One more thing, Mark. Your advisor should generally, for the most part, avoid industry jargon that you don't understand. And if you don't understand it, it's not going to come across to you in a way that makes sense.
We had a situation recently where a client came to us, and it's not a testimonial or anything, but a client came to us and said, I'm going to go buy this annuity thing over here. And in fact, I didn't say an annuity at first. I've got this investment over here, won't lose money. And we asked them to explain it to us, and they couldn't. Right. Now, from the little things that they said, we determined that it was a type of annuity product, okay? But it was clear that the investor did not understand what they were talking about investing in. And it was clear that the advisor that they were working with, well, in fact, it wasn't an advisor, it was an insurance agent that they were working with, was using all the financial jargon of the industry.
Right.
Like diversify and no risk and things like that. Protected withdrawals and things like that. And so it was confusing for them. And they ended up not doing that investment because they didn't understand it. Folks, if you don't understand, if you don't understand every investment that you're going into to a certain level of certainty, you shouldn't be investing in it.
Right.
And if your advisor is using a lot of highfalutin language and jargon that you may have heard that word before, but you're not sure what it means, most people are going to do what? They're not going to ask, right? Because they don't want to seem...
They don't want to seem unintelligent.
Right.
But, you should always ask and say, hey, I don't understand that. And if they don't give it to you plainly...
So part of your advisor shooting straight with you is using language that everybody can understand.
Right.
Because these investments are not that complex. If they are that complex, that's pause for me to want to even use that tool as part of my portfolio. All right, Jesse, all good points. Folks, we thank you for tuning in to the Spend Life Well Show. We'll be back next week with a new episode with lots of relevant topics to you. If you have a question you want to ask, you can always send us an email at radio@spendlifewell.com. That's radio@spendlifewell.com. Thanks for joining us today and tuning in. We appreciate you being here.